Welcome back to another episode of the Flying G Huddle, your inside look into Gladwin football. I'm Casey Campbell. I am your host, and we're pleased to be joined by Mark Jarsfer, the head coach of Gladwin. How are you?
Doing good, Casey. How's it going?
Doing good. The first win of the season against a big rival, of course, beating Claire 28 to 26. Why don't we do what we always do on this show, regardless of win or loss? Let's go through. Let's take us through the game.
Yeah, so we started out with the ball and went right down, much like we did last week, and had a really good drive and put 6 points on the board with a Talon Goodwin rush from about 16 yards out. Um, we mishandled the snap on the extra point and had to scramble around, and so unfortunately that was unsuccessful. We ended up stopping Claire's next drive and getting the ball back and went right down and scored again and went for two and got that. And so, you know, getting out to a 14 to nothing start and that type of game was huge for us just mentally because we had preached all week that this is like our chance, and this was a turning point in our season that we had to get. And so sitting there at 0 and 3 and still having playoff aspirations and all of those types of things, you couldn't allow those losses to keep piling up. And so getting off to a 14-0 start was a big deal. Claire was able to answer back on their next possession with kind of a broken play. It was like a low snap that kind of bobbled around on the ground for a second, and they picked it up and just like 65 yards or whatever it was, straight into the end zone. And then they missed their extra point from the crossbar, which would obviously prove to be big later on in the game. So then it was 14 to 6. Claire stopped us, got the ball back, and went down and scored again, but did not get their 2 point conversion. So that left the score at 14-12 late in the second quarter. Claire would go on to get another chance at it to end the second quarter, and they threw a pass down to like our 1 or 2. There was, I don't know, time was kind of running out, but they had a chance to get a couple plays in there. They rushed it a couple times. We stopped them both. And then I think, they were trying to get a quick pass in or something like that. That turned into kind of like a scramble around thing where we tackled the quarterback short and time ran out just as that was happening. And so that was a huge goal line stand for us to end the second half and go in up, two with a 14-12 lead at half because it was Claire's ball to start the second half. And so we were able to stop them. We added another score in the third quarter to make it 21-12 with that extra point. And so, turning it into a two-possession game in the second half again because of those extra points and 2 point conversions and those types of things. It was really big for us. Claire would kind of answer back in the third quarter and bring it to within two again, 21-19. In the fourth quarter, we had a long 40-yard run by Finninger, and we made the extra point again to stretch the lead back out to 9 and give us that two-possession lead again. We had a chance to ice the game late in the game with, I don't know, 2.5 minutes, 3 minutes, something like that left. With that two-score lead, and we're just trying to secure the ball and make the time just kind of disappear slowly. But we fumbled the ball on our first snap. Claire recovered it, and that gave them life. And so, of course, they went right down the field and scored to make it 28-26. And then they got the onside kick. And so that made things really interesting down the stretch. But, it's you would have been shocked at who fumbled it to give them the life. It was Preston Willard, right? He's been a 3-year varsity guy for us, kind of the heart and soul of our team. And it's crazy how these things come full circle. I remember back in the GRCC game a few years ago when Wheeler and Kokotovic fumbled one late trying to milk the clock, and then Wheeler ends up with a game-sealing interception. Well, Willard fumbled this one late, and it gave them momentum, and then he was able to recover a strip sack on Claire to get the ball back for us. And so that's kind of the way that it ended, 28-26. We felt like we played really well and comparatively to how we've been playing, and put together a really solid game. But it just goes to show again, like how razor thin margins are against good teams. And so, when you slip up and you have mistakes and stuff like that at the end, they can prove to be really costly. And luckily, we got out of this one on the right side of things, because it was a much needed win. And like we talked about, that we kind of viewed this as a turning point in our season, and hopefully able to get a little bit of momentum rolling from here.
Absolutely. So let's talk about the MVPs of the game.
Yeah, offensive MVP, I'm going to give it to our whole offensive line, which is composed of McKinnon, Bars, Grove, Bruner, Reed, and Molesworth. We use 6 guys there, and just rotate them every series. We rushed for 324 yards in the game, and they were really, really good up front. They've been coming along, leaps and bounds each week, and we start a couple sophomores on that offensive line, or have. There's 2 of them in that rotation, and 2 juniors and a senior, 2 seniors rather, and so just a kind of a wide variety of classes, meshing together there. Coach Emmett always does a fantastic job with our offensive line, and now these guys are truly playing in midseason form, and I have no reason to believe that they won't keep improving as well. And so they did a really good job, and anytime that you can control the ball and get 4, 5, 6 yards every first down, and put yourselves in second and third and short, that's going to be a good situation. And so they were definitely our offensive MVP. Defensively, I'd give it to Preston Willard. He was our leading tackler. He had 9 tackles. Like I said, he had that game-sealing fumble recovery. All of that sprinkled in with 120 rushing yards on offense, and just kind of the complete package for us, obviously. And so he's our defensive MVP. And then I know I've already given the special teams MVP to Madison Lockwood a few times, but as I alluded to earlier, the extra points were critical in this game. She had 2 separate opportunities to extend the lead out to a 9-point lead, which is obviously 2 scores, and knocked both of them through easily. And so I think I just mentioned last week that I knew at some point extra points were going to prove to be critically important for us. And then it was just this week that it ended up being the case. And so very glad that we have her back there kicking, and hopefully that stays consistent for us down the road.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk about the JV team.
JV played a really close game with Claire. They ultimately fell short. I think the final score was like 14-6 or something like that. It was a 1-score game, and those guys battled. We have, like I mentioned on previous shows, we have a lot of sophomores up. We only played our freshman quarterback for a half. Which is the starting quarterback on the JV team. We only played him for a half just because of our depth issues and injuries that we're dealing with on the varsity team, to use him as a varsity DB. And so, again, if we were trying to just win it at that level exclusively, we could have a lot of guys down there and be doing that. But our focus is always on putting the best varsity team together that we can, both now and setting ourselves up to be good in the future. And so, those guys are improving, definitely. You see them getting better and better every week, and so that's kind of just the goal for that JV team. And I have no doubt that we're going to see them starting to click here, and that turning into some wins before too long.
Yep. Let's talk about the middle school programs.
Yeah, so they both had their week two opponent against Bay City Handy Middle School. They played the doubleheader. They went 2-0 this past week. Both of their scores were like mid 40-ish to zero, I believe. And so they're off to a really good start. I think that puts our seventh grade at 2-0, our eighth grade at 1-1. And they're doing a great job with those guys. We're excited to see how their season finishes out here.
Also, I know there was the big battle of the game with Claire, but I know there was also another competition that you guys were a part of with them.
Yeah, Battle for the Bowl. I talked about that a little bit last week, but our schools compete against each other. Has nothing really to do with football, other than we're just taking advantage of that rivalry and wrapping in more of our schools, elementary through high school, to see what district can raise or collect the most donations, I guess, of non-perishable food items and hygiene products. And we had won it the first few years. Claire got it last year. And so we made a really big push to get it back this year, and we're successful. And so, between the two schools, I think we raised like 8,300 items or something like that, which is fantastic. All of those items, that are raised by each school or collected by each school stay right in their own communities. And so that'll be a big help for those that are in need in our respective communities.
Absolutely. Let's talk about a staff member this week. Who do you want to talk about this week?
I want to talk just about our three junior high coaches. I just talked about how they're off to such a great start and doing a great job down there. Jeff Demery is our head coach down at that level. Phil Willert is also an assistant coach there, and then a volunteer assistant, Corey Pullman. Those three guys are just running a fantastic program at the junior high level. They're running, our offensive and defensive schemes and drilling those things super hard. And now in year two, you're seeing it translate into some early wins, and I think that momentum will be big for us going down the road. All three of them are really good dudes. They're in it for the right reasons. It's educational athletics based program, and so we're focusing on grades and character and all of the right things while also having success on the field. And so they're doing a great job, and we're very fortunate to have them on board as well.
Absolutely. All right. So the season continues on. Week number 4 is in the books. Now it's on to week 5, and Standish Sterling is coming to town. Um, I know that they're kind of in the same position as you were in week 4. What is this matchup going to be like between you guys and Standish Sterling?
Yeah, I think I've talked about it before. I have a ton of respect for Coach Malcolm over there, and he always does a terrific job as well. I mean, he gets those guys ready to go. They're physical, they're mentally tough, they're all of those types of things, and you know that it's always going to be a hard fought game between the two schools. And so it's another one of those games where you can throw the record out the window. We're 1-3, they're 0-4, but I guarantee there'll still be some pretty good football played this Friday night. And so I do consider them in a position like we were, right? Like I'm sure they have playoff aspirations as well, sitting there at 0-4, and there'd be no better way to get some momentum rolling and try to get their way into the playoffs with than to have a win over Gladwin this week. And so, just because we had a big win this last week doesn't mean that the rest of the season is a cakewalk for us either. And so we got to fight and scratch and claw our way to keep improving and try to get as many wins racked up as we can so that we can get ourselves into the playoffs. And so I would expect a great game. That staff, as I mentioned, does a great job over there. And every time we play these guys, it's always just a battle to the end.
Absolutely. All right. Well, as they say in the soap operas, you have to tune into the next episode of the Flying G Huddle if you want to find out what happened in this game. But that'll do it for this weekend's Flying G Huddle. Tune in next week where we'll recap this game against Standish Sterling and preview the next game coming up, I should say, against Shepherd. So we will talk to you then.